You ever wish you had an invisibility cloak? You know, like in the movies? Well, it turns out nature beat us to it by a long shot, like 150 million years. So today, we're going to dive deep, literally, to see how squids invented a kind of invisibility tech that we are just now starting to wrap our heads around. And you know what? This isn't some new obsession we have. Our fascination with these creatures goes way, way back. We're talking ancient. Even the philosopher Aristotle, back in 350 BCE, was completely mesmerized, writing about their, well, seemingly magical ability to change color in the blink of an eye. Yep, we are talking about cephalopods. That's the whole crew. Squids, octopuses, cuttlefish. And let's be clear, they are the undisputed champions of disguise. I mean, they can literally vanish by changing not just their skin's color, but its pattern and even its texture. It's just wild. Okay, so how do they do it? Well, their skin is basically a high-def biological screen. It's got three kinds of specialized cells all working together. You've got your chromatophores, think of them as tiny sacs of pigment that stretch and shrink. Then you have leucophores, which scatter white light to handle brightness. But the real secret sauce, the thing that gives them that incredible shimmer, that's the iridocytes. And these living mirrors, they're the stars of our show today. All right, so here's the game plan. We're going to look at the amazing protein that makes this possible, figure out the molecular light switch they use to control it, see how we're now trying to copy that tech, and then we'll peek into what a bio-inspired future could look like. Let's get into it. All right, first up, we're zooming right in on the molecule that's behind all this magic. The secret to that incredible iridescence all comes down to a really special and, frankly, kind of a weird family of proteins. Now, you might be thinking, wait, what about peacocks or butterflies? And yeah, you're right, they have shimmering colors too. But here's the key difference. They use hard, static stuff like chitin or tiny crystals. The color is basically baked in. It's fixed. Cephalopods, they do something that is on a whole other level. They use soft, living proteins to actively tune their color. It's the difference between a beautiful but static stained glass window and a dynamic, high-definition screen you can change in an instant. So, let's meet the molecule that makes this all possible. It's called reflecting. This is our hero protein, and it's found exclusively in these squids. Its superpower? Self-assembly. It just knows how to organize itself into these perfect microscopic structures that reflect light. Check out this number, 1.591. What is that? Well, it's reflectance refractive index. That's just a fancy way of saying how much it can bend light, and let me tell you, this number is huge. For a protein, it's one of the highest ever recorded. And that ability to bend light like crazy is exactly what you need to create these stunning structural colors. So what's its secret? It all comes down to a really weird recipe. Reflectin is loaded with certain amino acids like tyrosine and arginine, but it's totally missing some of the most common ones you'd expect to find. And its structure is built with these repeating blocks, almost like a specific kind of Lego. It's this unique chemical makeup that lets it fold up and build those perfect light-bending structures all on its own. Okay, so the squid has this amazing protein. Awesome. But that's only half the puzzle, right? How does it actually control it? How does it flip that switch and change color faster than you can even blink? Right. I mean, this was the big question for scientists for a long time. It's one thing to have the hardware, these amazing proteins, but what's the software? How does the squid's brain send a signal to millions of these tiny mirrors and tell them to all change at the exact same time? Well, the answer is just an amazing biological circuit. It all kicks off with a signal from the squid's brain. A nerve ending releases a neurotransmitter. You've probably heard of it, called acetylcholine, or ACH. You can basically think of ACH as the master on switch for the whole system. And here's how that light switch works. It's a super fast cascade. First, that ACH signal arrives. Boom! That triggers a chemical reaction that flicks a switch on the reflectin proteins. It's a process called phosphorylation. Now, this causes the activated proteins to suddenly condense. They scrunch together, and that squeezes water out from between the cell's layers. And as those layers get closer, the color of light they reflect instantly changes. It's a perfect, elegant molecular switch. Chemical signal in, flash of color out. And what's crazy is how fast we figured this out. I mean, think about it. The proteins were only discovered in 2004. By 2010, scientists had figured out the light switch mechanism, and just a few years after that, they were already making their own reflectin films in the lab. That's a ridiculously fast path from discovery to technology. And believe me, it's just the beginning. So that brings us to the really cool part. We're moving from just understanding this to actually using it. How are engineers and scientists taking this blueprint from nature and building things that, frankly, a squid would never even imagine? So check this out. This is a perfect example. Scientists made a thin film out of pure reflectant protein. And when they just exposed it to something as simple as acid vapor, like vinegar, the film physically changed. And you can see on the graph what happened to the light it reflected. It didn't just change color, it shifted way out into the infrared part of the spectrum. That's heat, not light we can see. So what's the big deal with that? Well, it means we're not just talking about visible colors anymore. This opens the door to adaptive thermal camouflage. We're talking about creating materials that can change their heat signature on the fly, essentially making them invisible to things like night vision goggles and thermal cameras. That's a huge deal. And researchers are leveling up. They're moving beyond simple flat films. Now they're actually building these complex layered structures, stacking reflectin with other proteins to more accurately copy how the squid skin is actually built. They are literally reverse engineering this biological machine, piece by piece. And just when you think it can't get any cooler, the story takes a wild turn. The applications go way beyond camouflage. In a totally unexpected discovery, scientists found that reflectin is a fantastic proton conductor. What does that mean? It means you could potentially use it to build biodegradable protein-based electronics, like transistors. We are talking about sustainable, eco-friendly electronics made from a squid protein. It's mind-bending stuff. Okay, so what's the next frontier? Well, the most cutting-edge stuff isn't about copying nature anymore. It's about integrating it. It's about asking a pretty wild question. What happens if we take the squid's instructions for making this protein and put them into a totally different living thing? This sounds like science fiction, but it's real. In a landmark study, scientists took the gene for reflectin and put it inside human kidney cells growing in a lab. And what happened? The human cells started making the squid protein, and the protein did exactly what it always does. It self-assembled into these little light-scattering spheres. Get this, by just changing the salt concentration of the water around the cells, they could tune how transparent the living human cells were. This is basically the start of a whole new field called biophotonics, engineering living tissues to control light. And a discovery like that really makes you stop and think about our own technology. As one of the scientists put it, we humans can build space shuttles and skyscrapers, but we still can't build one single ordinary living cell from scratch. It's a powerful reminder that nature's engineering is just on a completely different level. It's pretty humbling, isn't it? Cephalopods have been working on this tech, perfecting it, for over 150 million years. That's a heck of a head start on R&D. What feels like a massive breakthrough for us is really just us finally getting a peek at a technology that evolution has been refining for an unimaginable amount of time. And that really leaves us with one last big question to chew on. If this one single protein from this one group of animals holds the secrets to adaptive camouflage, bioelectronics, and engineering living cells, what else is out there? What other mind-blowing technologies has nature already perfected, just waiting in the wings for us to discover?